I'm Dave Kazarowski, Content Manager of the CFA team at the Princeton Review. The CFA Institute recently released its changes for the 2024 curriculum. Now, it changes the curriculum every year, tweaks it to some degree, but the changes that are happening in 2024 and the announced changes for 2025 are arguably the largest overhaul in its entire history. In this video, I'm going to take you through the 2024 changes, especially the extensive changes to Level 1. The curriculum is getting a lot of changes. There are also quite a few announced changes outside of the curriculum, like an optional practice pack that the Institute is offering for Level 1, earlier eligibility before college graduation for Level 1, and also shorter early registration times, among others. I'm not going to go through details of that here. I'm only going to talk about the changes to the testable curriculum itself. So strap in, here we go.
Okay, as promised, major changes to 2024 CFA exams. Disclosure is very important. You must read and memorize all of these. Just kidding. So starting with the changes to Level 1, I'll go through each one of these in detail. 3 of the topics have been divided into modules versus untestable prerequisite readings. There is a content and format update that most of the other 7 topics for Level 1 have gone through that looks like a normal annual update. The topic weights have changed, not a whole lot, but it is worth mentioning. And then there are going to be these new practical skills modules. So let's start with the most dramatic of the changes, the prerequisites. So the Institute looked at these 3 subjects, the quantitative methods, economics, and financial statement analysis, and decided that the simplest material, say the time value of money, learning an income statement, basics, should go into prerequisite readings, pre-readings that are not testable. Using quantitative methods here as an example, there are 6 of these. Each of these pre-readings is smaller than a learning module that you would have seen in 2023, making up 323 pages. Okay, so this is information not testable. It's foundational to the material that is testable. That is 11 modules within Quant covering 339 pages. The 2023 material is split among these pre-readings and modules. So there's less overall testable material in Quant than there was last year. But you still need to understand the prerequisite topics and the prerequisite material in order to understand the testable module material. And if you look at the total number of pages in 2023, you've got 492. It goes up quite a bit to 662. So even though some of the material itself is not testable, you still really would need to know it in order to pass the test. And there is more overall material. The same goes for financial statement analysis. It went from 667 to 804, but only 505 pages of that, 12 modules, is testable. The total economics went down slightly from 534 to 495, with testable information within that being only 262 pages, 8 modules. What does this do? What does it all mean? Well, what it says to me is that the average candidate is now assumed by the Institute to have more baseline knowledge in these areas. And so the simpler information that would have been an easier question for the candidate in 2023 is just not going to be there in 2024. And the people who are coming into the test having come from a humanities degree or coming from a degree outside of business in their academic history are going to have a harder time. So even though it's smaller, says to me that this is going to make these areas more difficult. In addition to the changes to those 3 topics, many of the other topics in the rest of the Level 1 test got an overhaul as well. In 2023, the Institute made major changes to derivatives and alternatives. The main change was it didn't change the material extensively. What it did was break out the material into smaller modules. And the logic that the Institute stated was they wanted to have material whereby a candidate could come home after work and finish one module in a night. So derivatives took the bulk of this. It went from 3 readings to 10, and alternatives went from 1 to 3. This year, we're getting additional changes like that. Fixed income is getting the major change to that end. Preliminary look at the fixed income material says we're not really getting a whole lot of different material, but it's changing from 6 readings into 19, which is just a major reorganization. Now, there are, and in general, the readings are getting shorter. When there are changes, it means readings generally are getting shorter. For instance, equity investments, one of its readings, industry and company analysis, is being split into 3. How much new material is in there? Can't quite tell yet, not a whole lot, but the readings are getting shorter and getting split apart. Corporate got a pretty big overhaul last year, and it's getting another big overhaul. Measures of leverage has been eliminated. The working capital reading has been changed so much as to make it essentially a new reading. And one interesting thing, it's being moved into the morning session. That's probably because the first 3 topics have been, their weights have been reduced, and I'll go into that in a second. Portfolio management isn't getting a whole lot of changes. Technical analysis and fintech have been eliminated. Fintech, which covered blockchain and AI, some of that material was moved into the new testable modules of Quant, so they are recycling it to some degree. Alternatives is being split out even more. It was changed from 1 to 3 last year. It's changed from 3 to 7 this time. It still had a large reading last year. Private capital, real estate, infrastructure, natural resources, and hedge funds. That was a 1 reading last year. Each one of those types of private capital is going to get its own module this time around. Ethics has come away unscathed. Derivatives have readings have come away unscathed after their big change last year. All in all, again, the biggest change is splitting the readings without adding a whole lot of new material. Taking away the splits, I would call this about a normal year of revisions when it comes to just raw changes in material. I mentioned in the intro that the topic weights are changing as well. I'm not going to add too much to this. It's pretty self-explanatory. We've got the quant, econ, and financial statement, the pre-reading topics. The total amount of the portion of the material has gone down within the exam. They've also decreased the corporate issuers. At the same time, they've added weight to the equities and fixed income. The rest are the same. This seems like a pretty good change to me. It's much more practical. Equities and fixed income, you're getting straight to the instruments that we deal with as institutional investors. So it's not huge, but it is a tweaking that you should probably keep in mind as you're going in for the 2024 exam. And finally, last change for level 1, starting in 2024, there will be these practical skills modules. Now this is for both levels 1 and 2. It is an additional module that will be delivered at home through the Institute website. You can pick either one of these, or I understand you can choose both of them if you want to. You must complete the module. It will not be graded. And so Princeton Review will not be offering prep tools for these modules since they're not graded. However, you must complete the module in order to receive the score on the exam that you took during this cycle. So for level 1, you have your choice of financial modeling or Python programming fundamentals. This is interesting, where I've heard in the industry that we are getting closer and closer to programming and algorithmic investing, and a lot of the entry-level jobs that are opening up in the institutional investments business involve some degree of coding. So this is the Institute responding to that trend. You can take financial modeling. I suppose that's just the fundamental, the more conventional investment types, or you can choose Python programming. In level 2, there are similar modules, analyst skills, which I assume would match up with the financial modeling, and of course a more advanced programming in Python, data science, and AI. Interesting development, shows the Institute is responding to this trend. Okay, that's enough of level 1. Level 2. So the curriculum for level 2 has yet to come out. So we don't know the details of what these changes will be. The preliminary indication the Institute has given, there will be 1 new module, 3 eliminated, 2 major revisions, 1 minor revision. This looks like a pretty normal year for me. What stands out is these 3 that are being eliminated. I hope, fingers crossed, that means level 2 is going to become an easier test. It's widely regarded as the most difficult of the exams. The Institute has said that the prep time and the difficulty has been creeping up, and they wanted to bring it down somewhat. So hopefully this means level 2 is going to get easier. We'll know more when the curriculum comes out. The level 3 changes have been made public. Again, we're still digesting that and the Princeton Review team. 2 of the readings have been eliminated in behavioral finance. Behavioral finance exists in the other 2 levels. They might be thinking that the candidate has had enough of it. Minor revisions in 4 of the modules. Not a whole lot happening here. The big thing is going to be in 2025. Next year, they're going to have these specialized pathways. Very briefly, the way it's been described is about 30% of the material will be taken away from the common test. So all students will take a level 3 exam that has 70% common material. Then that remaining 30% will be in one of 3 specializations that the student chooses: private wealth management, private markets, or portfolio management. So you're essentially going to graduate, if you will, from the CFA charter with a concentration, with a major, rather than everyone getting exactly the same. Interesting idea. Let's see what happens next year when the full details of the changes come out.
So there you have it, details of the changes to all 3 levels. The actual content changes I don't see as being a whole lot more than a usual year. It's the format changes that we really need to focus on. If I had to wrap it up in one statement, I would say that level 1 is going to get a little bit harder. Level 2, I hope, will get a little easier. Not a whole lot is happening in level 3 this year, but next year they're going to add these specializations, which I think are going to be very interesting. It also shows, with the addition of Python and these practical skills modules, that the Institute is staying abreast of market trends and understands what's out there, which I think is good. That means they're doing right by us and our education.